Greetings, fellow programmers. This is Pavel, and this is a C++ exercise from the book Starting Out with C++ from Control Structures to Objects. And this is exercise from Chapter 8, Exercise 1. And we are going to be working with C++ arrays. One of the favorite things students encounter, I guess. It's not that bad, though. It really is not. You just have to realize what arrays are, and which is basically a variable that holds several values. You know, you have an integer, integer I equals 10. So the value of I is 10. But the array I, when it's declared, may have many more numbers, 10, 11, 12, whatever. But it's still just one variable that you use. It's still I. The only difference is that in order to access the actual value within the array, you need to know the index or the position of that value within the array. You still call the variable I, but you have to call it with the index. And this is what this exercise is going to show. We are going to write a program that lets the user enter an account number, and the program should determine if the number is valid by checking if it exists. The list of the account numbers should be initialized in a single dimensional array. Now there's obviously also two-dimensional, even three-dimensional arrays, but this one is just a single. Basically think of it as a line of numbers, while two-dimensional arrays would be like rows, like lines, but also columns. So it would go both ways. It would go to the x dimension for the rows, and it would also go to the y dimensions for the columns, but that's a different thing. This one's just single dimensional array. Now if the user enters a number that is in the array, the program should display a message saying that the number is valid. And if the user enters a number that is not array, then obviously we'll say that the account is invalid. So let's do it. Let's first also include IOStream. So we are going to be using some cin and cout. And I'm going to create a constant integer. I'll call it number of elements. And in this exercise they give me 18 numbers, so it's gonna be 18. That's gonna be the number of elements in the array, the number of values. Like I said before, it can have several or many numbers within one variable, which it would be the array, and this one variable will hold 18 integers. All right, so let's initialize the array with the account numbers. So to initialize the array, you type the type, which is in this case integer. I'll call it account, and the brackets that indicate that it's an array. And since we already know that we're supposed to initialize the array with the account numbers directly, we're not reading it from the file or anything. To initialize the array, you simply do equal in parentheses like this and type the account numbers, and this is the account number that the book gave me. So I'm just gonna copy paste them, and okay, so these are the numbers, the account numbers. That's 18 of them. It's the fact that there's 18 of them is just random. That's totally arbitrary. It could be any number of arrays. Like I said, this is simply the numbers that the book provided, so I'm using those. You could just use, for simplicity, just simply 10, 20, 101, or whatever numbers you would want. Alright, so we have the array. Now we need something that we will be checking whether the number exists or not. We have to have an integer. I'll just call it account number, and this is gonna be what the user enters, and this is what we will check against these numbers. If the user enters, let's say 5552012, we will go through the array one number at a time until we come to this number, and they say, yeah, that exists. And if we come all the way to the end, and the number, neither of the numbers matched what the user entered, then we know that he entered an invalid number. Okay, now I'm going to declare a boolean called found. This is basically going to be a flag that will be in the if statement. If the number was found, display this output that would basically say, yeah, you entered a valid number. And if found is false, then enter or display that the account was not found because it's an invalid number. Now I'm going to create a function that maybe I have too many brackets here, I think. Yeah, I'm a little outside of the... That's better. I'm going to create a function that returns the true or false, which we will be checking against the or assigning to the found. It will simply say, it will loop through the array, and if the number was found, it will return true, which we will then assign to our found. And the function, I'll call it search array, and it will expect two things. It will expect the integer, which is the entered value, that's the input that the user provides. And the second thing we need is the array itself. We need to check, we need to pass the array in order to have access to all the values in it. Now there's other ways to do it, but in this exercise, before you know anything about pointers, we will simply pass the whole array directly. So I will call this, I don't know, lookup array. That's basically this array that we will be passing, the account array. And in order to pass an array in C++, you need to also supply the number of elements in it as an argument, as a part of the argument. So this is how you get the arguments into the function, and soon I will show you how to pass those arguments and how to call this function. So this is our function, and let's create it. So again, I'm gonna create a boolean. I'll just call it found again, even though this found is different than this one. This one is only available within the main, from this bracket to this bracket. This one is available only from this bracket to this bracket, only for this function. So these are totally different variables, even though they have the same name. So again, I'll initialize it to false. And now let's loop for the array. But actually, you know what, before we do that, what we need to do, we need to create a prototype, obviously, because we have a function. So prototype, and the prototype is simple. It's basically just a signature of the function. So we are passing integer, and we are passing integer array with the, since this is a constant, we can pass it right into our signature right here. So this is basically the arguments that we are passing into our array, into our function over here. So to loop back to here, to our function, and let's loop through the array and determine whether we found the number or not. So the loop is very simple. For an integer I equals 0, obviously, this is the standard loop, really. Number of elements, this is a constant, so it's available to us because it's declared up here. So we could have done the same thing with this. We could just declare the array up here, but in this case, I wanted to show you how to actually pass it as an argument, because this way the array is only available again within the main. In order to be available for a function search array, we need to actually pass it as an argument. Whereas if we declare it up here with the boolean, with the constant over here, then we would have access to it throughout the whole class. Alright, so that's our number of elements, and I++, that's the standard. And now, how do you know if you found a number? Well, you basically do any statement. If the entered value, which is the variable we are passing here into our function, so if that equals to the array index or the array value we are on currently, since we are looping through all of them, it goes one by one and it basically checks, is it this one? Yes, no. This one? Yes, no. And basically it will, so the I is the index for each of these numbers. It goes from 0, which would be this one, to we have 18, so through 17, which would be this one. So in order to determine that, we simply do the index, so of the array compared to the value that is being entered. So if the entered value equals the lookup array, which is the variable, which is the name of the array, of the value of I, because that's I is the index corresponding with each of these values, and it keeps changing with each iteration of the loop. So we start from 0 all the way to 17 if necessary. So if it is true, if we found it, then we can simply return true. Yeah, here we go, we found it. And if it goes through all these loops, through the whole loop without finding it, it goes, this always evaluates as false, meaning that the entered value never matched any of the values in the array. Then it will exit the for loop, it comes over here at the end, and we will simply return false. And that brings me to a point that we actually don't need this variable at all. We could have just assigned it, like we could come over here and say, if you found this value, then let's say the found boolean that we had would equal to true. But we don't have to do it, we can directly return true. Because we don't have to, once we found it, let's say it's this number, we don't have to keep searching the others, because there's only one of these. They're all unique. So once we found it, no point of keep searching the rest of the array. And if we don't find it, then we will simply come over to the end of the function and return false. So now what do we do with this value, true or false? Well, we come over here and we do another if statement. We'll do, well, first let's do a cout, and just the classic. Oh, I forgot the you know what, I'm not gonna be doing these. Let's just do, I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna do the using namespace std. I forgot. Alright, so we do cout and then simply please enter your account number. And we will do cin and assign it to our account number. So whatever the user enters. We're not really checking whether it's an integer, which it should be. Normally you would obviously make sure that it's not a character, that it's actually a number. But in this case, let's just go without the validation. So now we have the input, and now we can check it. And the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna do an if statement, and if and our found over here is set to false. But if this found equals let me think about it quickly. Well, if found equals, and now I will call this function, because remember, this function simply returns true or false. So it will simply say found equals true or found equals false, whatever the result is returned. So we will do our search array call, and we will pass the account number, which is the not account but ACC number. That's the input from the user. That's the first integer over here, the entered value, and the second is the array, and again it's just a variable. All we pass is the account. It's the argument in the function itself that you need to specify that it's actually an integer array, that with how many number of elements that this function expects. This call simply provides those arguments. It provides those parameters that this function then processes. So we will do if found equals true or false, that is returned from this search array. So if it equals true, then we will simply write a message that, you know, the account number is valid. And I think I already know that there's gonna be a little bug here. I'm gonna run it just to show you later, but let me just do it that way. So cout, and we will do the, on a new line, let's say account, and let's call the whatever the number was entered. The account number of this number is a valid account. End of line. Else, in other words, if it's false, we will do, I'll just copy it because it simply says that it's not valid, is not a valid number. And that's all. And all right, let me run it. Let me see if it builds. It's going. Okay, so here we go. Please enter an account number, and I'll enter one that exists, which I believe was 5050552. But it says it's not valid, and I know it is because here it is, 5050552. So why would that be? Like I said, there is a little bug already when I looked at it. The thing is, it simply this test for true is found equal the same as is the return value. It's true or false. I have the found initialized to false over here, so it basically says is found, or the result of the search array, false. If it is, then it displays that it's a valid number, but it actually returned true because the number was valid. So this is the reverse. All I have to do is come over here and do the boolean to true. So now it say is found, which is set to true, is true equals true, which is returned when the account is valid. And if it is not, it means that true equals false. No, it doesn't. So it goes to else statement and displays that it's invalid. So let me run it again, and I'll do the same account, 5050552, and now it says that it's a valid number. And let's run it again with some, let's do the last one, 4581002, and it still found it. So and I'm gonna do like 1 to 3 or whatever. It's not obviously the valid number, and it says it's not a valid number. It didn't find it in the array. So one more test. Let's test the very first one, 5658845, and it says that it's valid. So it seems to be working correctly. So let's go through it very quickly. We initialized our array with 18 numbers, but keep in mind the variable is simply called account, and it's an integer. The fact that it has several values, 18 in this case, is simply because each of these values has a different index. It starts from 0 to 17. So account with the index of 0 is this number. Account with index of 17 is the last number here. We initialize the account number that we get as an input, and we have a flag of found that is we set to true, assuming that the account was valid right from the beginning. we ask for the input, and then we do the if statement. If r found, which is set to true, equals the, and then we call the search array function that returns true or false, depending on whether it finds or doesn't find an account number. So if it finds, it returns true, so it comes over here. True equals true. Yep. Alright, so this is the valid account. If it returns false, then it comes true equals false. No, so it's the else statement. It's an invalid account. And we call the function straight from our if statement because this simply checks the Boolean value, so we can do the comparison directly. And as for the function expects two arguments. One, the integer, which is the input that we are checking against, and the integer array with the same number of elements that we are passing as an argument. And then we simply loop through each of these elements in the array, and if we found the number, if the input from the user matches the number with the correct index of I, then we return true because we found the value. Okay, so yeah, this is all. It's maybe a little it may take a little time to understand how the arrays work, but all you have to remember is that you call them with the variable name, and the variable name simply holds multiple values, but each value has its own special position within the array, which is index. So, and the index always starts from 0. That's why we loop from index of 0 through how many elements the array has that we defined as a constant here. So, hope this was helpful. If it was, please leave a like, leave a comment, share with your friends, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.